We are going to take a look at some of the top 5 teams in college basketball, from Houston's firepower to Duke's depth and a bold Texas Tech. We are breaking down the way too early top 5 teams heading into the season. To make sense of these early rankings, I'm going to bring in the author himself, Isaac Trotter, and of course, Chris Walker. The gang is back together. I hope we are ready. Chris, it's been a minute, but I'm looking forward to you telling Trotter why he's wrong. It's one of my favorite pastimes, and I'm just glad we could all get back together here today.
Mine too, Adam. Don't worry.
So, Trotter, the floor is yours. I'm gonna let you start with who you think the number 1 team in college basketball is going into next season, as it stands today.
Yeah, I'm fascinated to see how Chris is going to hate on his Houston Cougars, right? H-Town, as he loved to tell us about it. I think this team is building to be the best team in college basketball right now. Now, some things need to go their way. Milos Uzayan maybe coming back for a second season would be enormous for them. But just we know the kind of the deal of like retention winning national championships. And I think we could see a situation where Emmanuel Sharp, JoJo Tugler, Milos Uzayan, if those 3 guys come back, you add in a glitzy recruiting class. Houston's recruiting in a way that they haven't done in many years under Kelvin Sampson. Like, this roster just looks a little bit different than other Houston rosters, while also having some of those similar faces. So, yeah, I just love the mix of those big 3 right there. You throw in a Pop Isaacs, a transfer out of Creighton. They could have the similar recipe of 3 guys who shoot over 40% from 3-point range next season. I think Isaacs is a plug-and-play LJ Cryer replacement, and this is all really hinging on Milos Uzayan coming back. If he comes back, I think he's a Big 12 Player of the Year contender. Emmanuel Sharp, awesome 2-way guy. JoJo Tugler, Defensive Player of the Year contender. Like, Houston's absolutely stacked with talent, and I think they're a pretty clear number 1 right now.
All right, Chris, tell him why he's wrong.
Well, it's going to be hard. You got me with this one, Fink. You know, I'm a Houston guy through and through. And you know, the crazy thing, the irony is, if Houston had just taken care of business on 4 possessions, right, a month ago, we might be talking back-to-back national championships. That is how good Kelvin Sampson has recruited. And I'm one of those guys, I haven't been on one of your transfer portal shows, that believes that sometimes this portal stuff is overrated. I think it will level itself out in years, and you got to get back to recruiting freshmen, similar to what Duke did, bringing an elite freshman class, mixing with a couple of transfers and some pretension guys. And next thing you know, that's the great recipe for possibly getting to the Final Four. One thing Isaac did mention is the core of look at some of the great teams like Purdue. Look at Marquette. A lot of those teams retain their core guys, and that's what Houston has done. And to me, is what puts them in a great position. Milos Uzayan, after his last 3 games in the NCAA tournament, I don't know how he's thinking about putting his name in the draft. He should definitely come back. If he comes back along with the addition of Pop Isaacs, no question makes them a favorite in the Big 12, and they're going to be tough to beat. But remember, Houston recipe, we can talk about the 3-point shooting, but you know this, Fink, and same thing, Zeke. At the bottom line is it's their toughness and their culture. The question is, can Pop Isaacs fit into that? I'm not sure. Often moving around. That's not a Kelvin Sampson thing, but he did get a couple of guys that come in and buy into the system that are transfers, and they had great careers.
So, guys, here's my only caveat with this. Granted, best recruiting class we've ever seen from Kelvin Sampson at Houston. He's got 3 different McDonald's All-Americans, but that creates a different dynamic for Houston. I mean, this is a program like they want to play the big boys. They want to play the guys who've been there. And you got 3 guys, freshmen, who are going to try and come in, and they're as talented as they get. Chris Senak, I think Kelvin Sampson is going to be huge for Chris Senak. And Chris, we are talking about a 6'10" big man who can do everything, just has a little bit of an inconsistent motor, and I think Kelvin Sampson's going to solve that, but I do think there are going to be some growing pains. Isaiah Harwell, big wing who can shoot the basketball, got a really potent mid-range game, and then you got Kingston Flemings, and hopefully Uzan comes back and Flemings gets the benefit of learning under his tutelage. But if not, this is a lead guard who's got to learn how to shoot the ball. So, you know, it's going to be interesting to see how they incorporate all 3 of those guys in there, because it is kind of the liability to that asset of having the best recruiting class ever is now you got to incorporate more freshmen than ever into your rotation. So it's going to be very interesting. Trotter, the second overall team, you've got John Shire and Duke, and obviously they are already looking forward to next season, given how this season ended. They retained Isaiah Evans. They got the Boozers coming in. Nick Kamania is coming in. They got Cedric Coward out of the transfer portal if he doesn't go into the draft. So, what is the case for them to be number 2 overall in the country?
Yeah, they're not number 2 if Cedric Howard does not come back to school. That would obviously change the calculus. But I think Duke has a chance to be an extremely good defensive team again. You look at the starting lineup, they could have 6'5" Caleb Foster, 6'6" Isaiah Evans, 6'7" Cedric Coward, 6'9", 6'10" Cam Boozer, and then Malik Brown, Patrick Gongbo, like that type of mix. Like they're going to be enormous at all 5 positions. That positional size was something that they really used to flex on teams. And I like the process that Duke is playing with right now. I think John Shire has figured out a little bit of what he wants to be as an offensive coach. First couple of years, there were some questions like, oh, are we playing really slow? Or like, what's our half-court offense look like? They've really revamped their offensive process. I think this gives this group a lot of staying power. And, there are holes to poke with this Duke team, right? Like, there's not a lot of, like, proven, no doubt, like high major dudes that have put up big time numbers. But like, I think it was just more just like opportunity last year. Caleb Foster's a good player. Isaiah Evans, if he hadn't gone to Duke, would have been a really good, productive freshman. Cedric Coward, when he's healthy, he's a pro. And so, like, then you add in Cam Boozer, who, I mean, what's his high school record? Like, that dude just never loses games. Like, he's just an unbelievable winner at the high school ranks. So I just love the mix of this group. I think their front court has a chance to be one of the best in college basketball. When you add in Gongba, Malik Brown, and Cam Boozer, like that trio right there, that's some special stuff that Duke is going to be able to put together. And who knows, they could still have room for another addition or two to this mix already. That looks good on paper.
Chris, let me ask you this, because I thought one of the keys to this year's Duke team, like we can talk about the obvious and Cooper Flag and Con Kneppel, but like Sion James in that group, like they had great connectors this year and they had guys who embraced their role. I'm not sure who the connectors are. And I totally agree. Like Caleb Foster, Isaiah Evans, those guys are talents, no question about it. But like, are they the connective tissue or do they think they're the alpha? So I just wonder if the pieces fit together quite as cleanly next season. What do you think?
I mean, that's a really good question, Frank. And the question for me, as I listen to Zach put those things together, is like, yeah, but you're missing one unique thing. They got 3 lottery picks. So the only place you can pick ahead of them is number 1. They lose 3 lottery picks and they're number 2. Coward was hurt and he could be a good player, but he played on a team that finished 6th or 7th in the WCC. So to me, it's hard for me to lend weight to that. Obviously, Boozer coming in is a big, big, big deal. Let's just face it. I don't know if it's Cooper Flag like, but it's a huge deal. But you mentioned those 2 connectors that they had as upperclassmen, starting with Sion James. Those things matter. Sion James was a huge, huge player for them last year. And so I don't know if that place there. Malik Brown was often hurt. And Caleb Foster, and you mentioned Isaiah Evans. It's easy to say if he had played someone else, he would have done that. We could play that game all day long. But at the end of the day, when you're the top of the scouting report, can you be that guy? John Shire had an unbelievable mix of guys, did a great job in the melting pot, putting together a gumbo. They're still going to be very talented, but the number 2 team in the nation, and you're right, Zach, when you're talking about their length and their ability to defend, they don't have that same goalie that they have in Malawach. And at the end of the day, they score. They're one of the best scoring teams ever in the NCAA tournament. And that is the reason. We could talk defense all day long, but you couldn't catch them because you couldn't outscore them.
All right, fair enough. Trotter, BYU, they're spending money now. They got a squad out there. Rob Wright's coming in, AJ DeBonce's coming in, and John Rothstein said the Final Four should be the goal. Your preseason ranking at number 3 seems to back up that point. Tell me why you've got them as high as you do.
Yeah, I think they crushed it with their additions here. Just trying to find different pieces. There's not a lot of positional overlap on this group. And Richie Saunders, AJ DeBonce, and Rob Wright, I think, has a chance to be one of the best trios in college basketball next year. But like, you have to hit on role players. And I think Keba Keita is a veteran role player inside that could really rim run, lobs, great rim protector. I think that's going to help. I think Kennard Davis is a super underrated get for them out of Southern Illinois. He absolutely guards. And I think the counting stats are going to come down for him a little bit, but he's going to really guard. And I love the idea of Rob Wright being supplemented by Richie Saunders, who's huge, and AJ DeBonce, who's huge, and Kennard Davis, who's huge. 3 big, long wings like that. I think BYU has a chance to be a really, really special team. And I think the player development here is another key aspect of it. Like Mahalo Boskovic is a guy I liked some of the tape throughout his freshman year. Can he give you something? You know, can their big man, their freshman, Xavier Stanton, can he give you something as a rim runner and rim protector, or maybe just as a 15 to 18 minute a game guy off the bench? Like they just have loads of depth. And I think they did a great job of self-scouting as well this year too, knowing, hey, our biggest issue is we need a paint touch guard. And so they went out and got the best one in Rob Wright. So like I love the mix of this group. And they're honestly a team that I genuinely considered at number 2. Like if it's Houston and BYU at the top of the Big 12, like boy, buckle up, because those 2 games are going to be really, really fun.
Well, the other thing with BYU is they don't have caveats. So with Houston, we're saying if Milos Uzan comes back. With Duke, we're saying if Cedric Coward doesn't go to the draft. BYU's already started practice. Like you go on their social media and these guys are already working out together because they already know who their team is. Chris, where are you at on BYU?
Listen, it's hard to really bet against what they're doing. No pun intended. They have put their money where their mouth is, so they have really invested the funds. I mean, Rob Wright was a huge get from Baylor. I mean, I'm sure Scott Drew is still lamenting that one in his sophomore year. He played alongside Cooper Flagg and Liam McLillan, and those guys at Mount Verde, along with Asa Newell. But I'll tell you this, what they did great. They have a tremendous coaching staff, NBA minded, shooting the three, scoring baskets. You watched in the NCAA tournament last year, they ran against a juggernaut, and it's all about defense with these guys. They got enough talent on offense, got the #1 player in the country. They have enough Cade Cater inside. The question is the depth. When they played against the Houstons of the world, it came down to physicality. And that's what's going to happen in the Big 12. Surely they can put some offensive schemes together to score a lot of points. They'll spread you out. They have a ton of talent, and I believe that this coach Kevin Young is one of the best coaches and young coaches in the country as far as the way he sees the game. They clearly see it from the NIL perspective. They also see it from the way they play. But it's really hard. Think about this, guys. When we've talked about BYU in the past, anybody's ever talked about BYU, you always thought football, and then maybe you heard about them in basketball with Jimmer Fredette. But now we're talking about BYU as being a legitimate chance to be in the Final Four because they've invested in their program. I think this team's going to be exciting to watch. I think the Marriott Center is going to be crazy, and it's going to come down to Houston. Think about this. 2 years ago, would you think you'd be saying, hey, who's going to win the Big 12, Houston or BYU? I mean, and obviously we're going to talk about Texas Tech, but I think that he's done a phenomenal job there. And I believe this team is similar to watching, and if we had an NBA equivalent, the Indiana Pacers. They're just a fun team to watch that's get ups and downs on the floor. One of my favorite teams to watch in college basketball.
And a reminder, you can go listen to that interview with Coach Young. He came on the 24/7 Sports channel, and that interview is still available, talking not just, and he said very clearly, he said, listen, resources doesn't just mean NIL. It means I can build the staff I want. It means we have the staff, the facilities, the programs to support all these guys across the board. So I don't encourage anyone to go back and watch that interview because it's still as valid today as it was about a month ago. Trotter, you've got Purdue at number 4, and clearly with Matt Painter, this is a testament to his ability to retain his top players. Got one of the best, probably the best returning inside-out duo coming back in college basketball next season. Tell us more about them.
Yeah, they're going to be a cheat code. They're the only team that made the NCAA tournament last year that got their best 2 players back. That's it. Like, and Braden Smith and Trey Kaufman-Renn, I think Purdue is going to walk into next year thinking they have the best point guard in the country and the best big man in the country. And that is a recipe that you can really win around. And then you add in Fletcher Lawyer, who's still there. And then you add in like CJ Cox, who didn't leave. And then you add in Jakari Harris, who didn't leave. Like all those supporting pieces are huge around those 3 guys. And, you know, Matt Painter hasn't been a huge proponent of the transfer portal, but he does a nice job of finding the right guys that fit his system. And last year, Purdue had some issues, right? Like, there was a really talented team who was a bucket away from potentially making the Elite Eight and beating Houston, but they had some issues. They couldn't rebound at a high level. So they went into the portal and got Oscar Clough, who's an elite defensive rebounder. And now they couldn't protect the rim at a high level last year. And Daniel Jacobson, their freshman, is going to get healthy. And he's regarded 7'1", enormous wingspan, has a chance to be a really decent rim protector for them right away. So I think they've added some pieces at the right spots. Omer Meyer, an Israeli product, is also coming over to maybe get Braden Smith off the ball a little bit. Like, this team is really good. Now, I think that their floor, like early in the season, is going to be extremely high. I have some questions about if teams might be able to catch up to them in March as the new pieces kind of get set. But like from the beginning, if you told me who the best team in college basketball is in November, I might be Purdue. And I just because I think their continuity is off the charts that no one can match.
Chris, where are you at with the Boilermakers?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, Matt Painter, I mean, he's done a tremendous job. I think he and Shaka Smart are two of the guys that do a very good job of retaining their players. That's my word to any coach. You could talk transfer portal and you could talk all that stuff all you want. You want to really win, have some consistency as U of H did, and the Houston Cougars, that is, and Matt Painter. He has probably the best big and the best guard combo in the country. If any coach asks you, where do you want to build your program? That's where you start. Braden Smith, first team All-American, Big Ten Player of the Year. Last year, they started as the Big Ten favorite, did not end that way. To Isaac's points about not being able to rebound, I think it's the post-Zach Edey era, not being able to rebound and that physical toughness that they had. And Braden Smith, quite frankly, being worn down. I think this team, again, in November, they're certainly going to be ahead of people. The question is, do they have what it takes with the additions to finish down the stretch? They have the coach, they have the culture. The question is, when it comes down to conditioning, and will they be a team, as you say, the Michigans, the Michigan States, they're going to do their thing. But if you're asking anybody about the Big Ten right now and who they have coming back, forget about transfers. They have a solid nucleus, and that is a great start. And I believe that Purdue is one of the top 5 teams in the country.
Yeah, hard to bet against Braden Smith. I thought he was probably the most reliable point guard in the country this year. He will surely have that title to start next season. I mean, this guy is just a total maestro with the ball in his hands and as good of a college point guard as you're going to find. Trey Kaufman-Renn had a terrific season. The other thing too, and I'm glad Trotter mentioned it, Daniel Jacobson. I think he's got a chance to be really special. He made a significant jump just around this time last year when he was playing with USA Basketball. Unfortunately, he missed his freshman season with injury, but his arrival is one that is going to be, I think, very relevant for the Boilermakers. All right, Trotter, let's finish up your top 5. You've got Texas Tech in there. You like the work they did, both recruitment and retention. Tell me about them.
Yeah, Grant McCaslin's just a baller, just a complete baller. The team that he builds year in and year out just makes a ton of sense. And, this is a big bet on Christian Anderson really finding his way as a potential lead guard. But all across the board, like you get JT Toppin back, the Big 12 Player of the Year. You go into the portal and you get, LaJuan Watts out of Texas Tech, who I think is like the perfect Darian Williams replacement. He does all the things that Darian Williams does really, really well as a booty ball threat. They're going to post him up like crazy. If you draw 2 on him, he's going to find guys. He had a 25% assist rate last year. So Anderson, Watts, and Toppin, you have a lead guard that you love, a 4-man that you love, a mismatch hunting wing that you love. And then the way that they build it out around them is so smart. Donovan Atwell out of UNC Greensboro, catch and shoot sniper, just shoots the cover off of it. Tyree Bryant, catch and shoot sniper out of Santa Clara. The paint's going to be wide open. Good luck double teaming Watts. Good luck double teaming Toppin with those 2 guys on the floor. And then keep an eye on VCU transfer Luke Bamboy. That addition is enormous. Federico leaves. They bring in Bamboy. I think Bamboy is actually an upgrade. Unbelievable rim protector. He got great bounce. Going to give them a lob threat. Defensively, he's through the roof. And the thing I love about Texas Tech, they can play so many different ways. Again, they can play big, they can play small, they can have 3 guys on the floor, 6'8" or taller. They can play 3 guards at the same time. They just got so much flexibility. And I really think that like this type of year, when rosters are changing, I'm going to trust the teams that consistently build good teams. And those roster builders, like if you're, accumulating the list of the top roster builders, Grant McCaslin and Texas Tech is like near the top of that list for me. They're a top 5 team in college basketball for me. In the Big 12, like we've talked about, holy cow, like this group is absolutely loaded at the top of the food chain.
Trotter, I don't know that I've ever seen anyone be as excited about a college basketball team in May as you just. Jack. That was really something special. Chris, I'm like somewhat concerned because Darion Williams was so important to them in so many different ways. Does that give you any pause that they have to figure out what life looks like without Williams?
I think they have to figure out what life looks like without a couple of those guys. And you mentioned the enthusiasm that Trotter had about Texas Tech. But one thing that being a former head coach there and knowing their fan base, they're very passionate and similar to BYU, they have put the resources in to make sure that Grant McCaslam has what he needs to go out there and win. And so much about college basketball right now is roster configuration. And I tell guys, forget about the 2 and 3 year plan. It is year by year by year, and they've done a masterful job. And what Grant does is get guys that fits his culture. And as Trotter says, they can play a number of different ways, but those it factors, those X factors, like guys like Darian Williams, Toppin's a great player, but if you look at that team last year, you need that one guy that you're like, you know what? We're going to give it to him and we're going to be all right. In those pivotal games in the NCAA tournament, he was the guy. Now, he may be able to come back, which would make them probably higher than top 5 in the country, should I say the 5th spot in the country. But if he does, man, forget about it. But at the end of the day, let's not forget about guard play. That's essential because they were a 3-point shooting team as well. And I just believe that if Darren Williams is not back, right, that's a little bit tougher for them. They did bring in some pivotal guys. But guys, I'm just one of those guys. I love Luke Van Boy. I covered the A-10. I just think when those guys step up a weight class, there's an adjustment when you don't have enough guys that are your nucleus that have played at that level that can ease that adjustment because it's not one-to-one. Playing the A-10 is not like playing the Big 12. But if you have enough guys that you retain that can ease those guys in, it makes it more of a seamless transition.
All right, fair enough. Fellas, we could do this all day. I appreciate you both so much. I love the banter. I know it's all in good fun. Everybody can read more of Trotter's work. He's got the top 10 that also includes Kentucky, Kansas, Louisville, St. John's, and UConn. You can head on over to 247sports.com. We got a promo for you. And as always, you can go there to read the latest from recruiting rankings, wall-to-wall team coverage, transfer portal updates. It is all right there, 247sports.com.